with this dice intersecting, and our goal for today is just kind of go over the various selection tools and decide like which selection tool is the best for the job, so to speak. So let me, before we start this, go into Google Classroom, and I'm going to have you hold off, I think, on this assignment. We're in third period, doesn't really matter. I have it due today. We'll see how far we get, but there are some things that I would like to demonstrate to you that I don't think we're going to get to today. So today, we're going to, you're going to have this selection techniques document to fill out. And you don't have to fill it out about the bat, but just you're going to fill this out, 3 selection tools that you tried and the advantage and disadvantage of for each. So you could just copy these 2 sentences and put them in here, or write your own sentence, doesn't really matter. And then make the best selection you can with any tool or combination of tools. Save your work as a JPEG, put it here, and write one final note explaining how you made your selection and why you think it was the best choice. So sometimes we select things and we don't need a super clean selection. Sometimes it's really critical. And sometimes, you know, we have complicated backgrounds, and sometimes we have really easy backgrounds. So there's a bunch of different selection tools, and Photoshop is getting much better actually at helping us select. So we're going to look at that today. Okay, so hopefully you have your dice intersecting up, and the first group of tools we're going to look at are our magic wand tools. Okay, so in this group, so W selects the group, Shift W cycles through the group, but let's start with magic wand first. Magic wand selects by color. Okay, it selects by color. So if we were to select this red die in the front, not very good selection. And anybody can tell me why that's not such a great selection?
Because it's not the full side.
But what in my, how about like what on my options bar might make this, if I changed a setting, might make this select this whole die instead of just this very specific part?
You could change the tolerance.
Change the tolerance. Thank you very much. Okay, so right now my tolerance is low, and I want to do a review on this. Okay, so when you have a low tolerance, what that's saying, right, I'm taking a point sample, which means on a pixel level, I'm telling the computer that when I click this object, when you're far away it looks like you're selecting the object, but you're actually selecting a pixel or a neighboring small group of pixels. So when my tolerance is low, I have not a lot of tolerance for any color other than this one that I'm selecting. Okay? Conversely, if your tolerance is high, it's going to select, you know, a lot more, right? Even pixels that we don't want. Okay? So all right, so again, with a reasonable tolerance, I think the default is like 35. If I select this die, takes me a few clicks. Maybe if I make it a little higher. Oops. I'm not liking this selection at all. So I'm going to make this a little bit higher. getting a better selection. And the reason why I'm able to add to this selection is because my option on the option bar up here is add to selection. There's, just to remind you, the first one is new selection, the second is add to, and the third is subtract from. Okay, so once I have my die selected, I want to copy it to a new layer. And who remembers how to do that?
Command J.
Command J, or on a PC, Control J. Thank you for that. I think it was Joya. Right, and now I have my one die isolated, and I gave you this black background so that we can have, you know, like a really good contrast. Right, pretty good selection on that. Fairly smooth. It is a little pixelated, and that's because we have this is a raster program, right? And the image quality isn't super great either. So I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to put this wand. Okay. You're going to do something similar, but I want to select one more and then tell you what you're going to do. Let's select this die with our magic wand. And I still have a pretty high tolerance, but it's not picking up. I have to do a lot more clicking. Right, because the colors are not as, they're a little bit less defined, right? We have greens, oranges, reds, blacks, and now I'm going to copy this to a new layer. And you'll notice that it actually did a pretty good job, but not as good as our red die. This is also with the wand. I'm just going to move it a little bit. So kind of side by side. So not quite as smooth because a lot of different colors going on. So Magic Wand isn't probably the best tool to use with this particular shape, right? And this is what you're going to do. I'm going to turn off the visibility, and you're going to practice your other selection tools as well. So in this group, remember Shift plus W will get us our next tool. For me, that is the Shape Selector tool. So I'd like you to try to pick one die, and on the wrong layer, and go through that group, making selections, and then copy them to a new layer and name that layer the tool. So this is object. And I think the last one is quick. Shift W. And just take a minute to check the differences between your selections. So what does quick versus object look like? And I used V to get my move tool so I can move these objects around. And I could tell which layer, which one this is because it's highlighted, right? So this is my object select, this is my quick select. What do yours look like? Which one is better? Wand versus quick versus object. Just take a couple minutes, make sure there's no questions that pop up. I'm going to pause my recording here. All right. Let's move on to a different, we're going to move on to our bat. Obviously I was playing. Okay, we have this long-eared bat, and we're going to look at some other selection tools. This time we're going to you can try different things. You can try with your magic wand, for instance. And there's really easy ways to make this selection as well, but that I will show you. But I'd like to look at our next group of tools, which are the lasso tools. So L or Shift L. And we've used this lasso tool with the bunny, right? This freeform lasso. We were going to try to select this guy. Right? But that's not going to give us a very good selection. So I'm going to go Shift L, and the next lasso tool is a polygonal lasso, and that's really good for making really need to take that. That's great for making straight lines. So if there's any kind of tool or building or anything that's very straight, these lassos do make a nice selection. So it's a really good tool to have, but obviously for our bat, not the best. I'm just going to escape out of that guy. And then finally there is the magnetic lasso. So do Shift L. And the magnetic lasso tries to follow a line, right? So it's going to do a really good job of selecting this bat's ear because it's very defined against the background, right? And you'll notice that the magnetic lasso drops these little points, and you can help it by dropping your own points. So I'm going to drop one here because I'm going to go back up. Because it gets confused sometimes, right, what you're trying to select. Like I'm losing a little part of that ear at the top. So I'm going to go back. And people go, oh, no, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so to go back, use your delete key. And the delete key will delete the last point that you made. So you can just, or like I did before, you can escape and start again, but why start again, right? Everybody can be doing this with me. I often just keep my finger on that delete key, especially when you get in really close. You can be kind of confused. So see, I was getting confused by this fur here, right? Because it's very similar to the shadow below. So the computer is having a hard time differentiating between the two. Just going to do this kind of quickly. And notice when you get to the end of your selection, I'm going to zoom in here, you get a little circle, right? Meaning that your selection is complete. And I don't want to do that. Oh my gosh, that's a terrible selection. So you can see when you get in close that I'm missing all kinds of this fur. Okay, so I get a little circle saying that now when I click here, my selection will be complete. So that's what I'm going to do. It's important to know that oh yeah, that selection is terrible. It's important to know that with that little circle for a lot of things, it makes it a complete path when we start working with paths. So knowing that that completes your selection is important. And then once I have my selection, I can do another Control J, check my selection, and it's super choppy, right? So it did select it. I could go clean it up a little bit, but it doesn't look very good. Right. So I want to show you a couple of other ways to select. And one thing I did not go over with second period is this kind of a trick way. There's, Photoshop improves every year, and they've gotten really good at this object select thing that we just looked at with the magic wand. But if you go to your properties panel, and if you don't see your properties, go to Window, Properties. You can do a lot of things in your properties layer. It gives you information, how big your image is. You can change the size of your image here. You can transform your image. Okay, now our bat's hanging upside down. Right? You can flip your image. Right? So lots of things that you can do here, and that you don't have to go into your transform tool. So here it is, like transform, right? So you can transform the size, you can flip vertical, and you can flip horizontal too. I kind of like that view actually. And then if you scroll down, you can align things, and then there's these quick actions. So there's two of them: remove background or select subject. And with an image like this, they work really well. So I'm going to try this first, remove background. And what you'll notice is it didn't really remove the background. It created a layer mask. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. So that was remove background. This one is select subject. I'm going to click select subject. Photoshop is going to say, I know what you want, right? It's this bat, because everything else is dissimilar. And the cool thing when you have your selection, then you can put your own layer mask on. So I'm going to go up here on my option bar and say select and mask. And when I do that, I get a little, the property panels opens up, okay? And I can do all kinds of things. So I can smooth my selection, or I can feather my selection, apply some contrast, and shift the edge. So let's look at this, kind of these refinements here. Feathering is really good for fur. So if I were to feather this a little bit, actually, you can see how my selection is actually shrinking, right? And what this does is puts a little bit of it makes it a little blurry on the edges. So for instance, if you were selecting a cat, you would be able to see, like, it would just have this perception of like softness around the edges, not like our magnetic lasso did before, right? So for this, because it does have a little bit of fur, maybe we'll do a little bit of feathering. Let's do nothing first. Okay, so I have my selection. I have a preview, right, of what it's going to look like. And down here you can output. You might have to click output to. You can output it to a selection. So I could just say okay. It just keeps the selection, right? And then I could create a new layer and fill it with blue. I'll have a red bat. Right? And now I have a red bat. right? So that's one thing you can do. Went a little too far. You need to be in a selection tool. When any of the selection tools, you'll have these options on your option bar to select and mask. I'm just going to say select to a new layer with the layer mask. And instead of Command J, we have another one. And again, notice that it still has that background. We're just masking. So how layer masks work is anything that's white is visible and black is invisible. So black conceals and white reveals. And how you can adjust your layer mask is with your paintbrush. But I'm going to go over that in just a couple minutes. So it actually did a really nice job, right? I have a little bit of like kind of blurring, right? Where the fur looks pretty, it looks pretty tight, I must say. All right, so that again was in quick actions on your properties panel. Select subject and select and mask. And non-destructive doesn't do anything. If you wanted to add images, like change this face, for instance, to, I don't know, a donkey, then you could have, you could like show the donkey face, right? So we can, with our paintbrush, B for brush, I can hide some of this area, right? So I need black on top, right? And I am not painting this black. If I go to my background, you'll see this is now transparent. So if I had a donkey face on my background instead of black, you would start to see that donkey face inside the bat face. Okay, so it's a really great way to be able to manipulate images and without destroying them, right? So I still have that original image right there. I'm going to stop and let you experiment for a couple minutes. Oh, and if I want to have the bat face show up again, just click X so white's on top, and voila. You'll notice that I accidentally touched up here a little bit, which started bringing in that white background. You have to be careful. The way to add a layer mask is right to the layer itself. Okay, and then use painting tools to manipulate those layers. So hopefully you have this open. You have a winter layer and a fall layer. And we're going to bring in some of these. I had to grab something quick from the internet. I don't have my files here at home. But we're going to add a layer mask to this layer here. And we also have some options in the properties. So you can feather your mask, so make it softer, right? You can change, you can make a selection, right? You can do a lot of different things for you to play around with. But right now, we're just going to play around with hiding some of this winter layer and bringing in some fall. So on the winter layer, you'll see the mask is all white, which means that everything on that layer on this image is visible. And we want to hide some. So go to your brush tool. I'm going to go to my brush tool and make sure black is on top. And you want to make sure that your mask is selected. Okay, and then I have my my tablet here with a nice soft brush. And I'm just going to start. And this is where you kind of have to just decide like how much how much to reveal. I'm going to reveal like kind of everything here. My leaves. Maybe I'll do a little bit too much. Just going to do kind of a rough so I can show you those branches. But that's not very smooth, right? So by just clicking X, kind of going back and forth and hiding or revealing, or if you have your brush, your drawing tablet, right, you can make some just much like finer adjustments. Okay. By going and either hiding or revealing and kind of going back and forth until you have something that's, fairly realistic. And again, I'm just using my X key and going back and forth. Right? If you reveal too much, then, oops. Yeah, you can go back and like hide a little bit, make it a little softer. The transitions. Bring in a little bit more of the winter. So I just wanted to give you another like use of a layer mask and how it works. So again, I'm hiding and revealing. I'm hiding parts of the top layer to reveal parts of the layer before. And similarly, how I was saying you could replace the face of the bat, right, with a different image from below. So let's take a minute and...
Computer was sort of glitching, so I couldn't...
Next, we are going to go to this guy, and then you are going to have some practice of your own. We have 3 plates here. The plates are white, as is the background. The napkin is white, so Magic Wand is not going to be a good tool here. So we're going to go to our Marquee tools for this. The shortcut is M. And since these are round, we're going to use our elliptical Marquee tool. And this takes a little bit of practice, I must say. So if you would please follow along with me. Let me put my tablet to the side here. I'd appreciate it, so please give attention to this. So if I want to select this, first of all, I have 3 plates, 3 circles, so I want to have add to selections here. The Marquee tools make really nice copies too. It's a pretty good selection tool. So if I want to make a select this circle, to make a perfect circle, okay. Hold Shift will make it a perfect circle, but this circle isn't where I want it to be, right? So to move your selection, my finger is still on the mouse. Okay, I'm going to take my finger off the mouse, and that would be my selection. So let me do that again. I'm clicking with my mouse and dragging. My finger is still on the mouse. The selection is not where I want it, so I'm going to hold space bar and move my selection, and it's just kind of space bar, click, drag. Okay, I have add to selection, so I can select another plate. Okay, not where I want it. I'm going to move with my finger is still holding down my left mouse button. Press the space bar, and get another selection here. I don't like that one. So I want everybody to try this along with me, please. I was kind of making it bigger and smaller and moving it and trying to get the best you can get. And finally, this guy down here. And it's a fairly quick selection method. And you can always go in and refine your selection, right? Make it a little bit bigger, make it a little bit smaller. You can also mix your selection tools. I kind of forgot to mention that. So you can go into any of these selection tools with the selection, right? And like zoom in and refine the selection. So for instance, I want to kind of make in essence move this, right? And I can do that probably with my quick selection or magic wand. So I think I'll try my magic wand here. And I want to add to this select. Whoa, that did not work. Why didn't that work? Huh. I think I just selected everything. Yes. So when you have marching ants around your entire document, that means you've selected everything and have to start over again. So I'm going to go back to my marquee. I'll also show you one more thing where you can make your selection grow or shrink. So I'm going to add this plate. I'm going to do this kind of quickly. Your next assignments are going to be about selection. So the quality of your selection, the completeness of your selection is what is going to be where you're going to be graded. Okay, so just keep that in mind and don't go too quick. When you have your selection, last time we did select and mask, but you can also go to select up on your Photoshop menu and go to modify, right? And you can expand your selection or contract your selection, feather. You have all of those same tools that you have when you're in the property panel. Okay, so you can do all kinds of things. Sometimes people, I don't know how, but get into this mode, edit and quick mask mode. Everything turns red, including your layers. And this means that you're in a quick mask mode, right? And to get out of it, you press Q for quick, and you will get out of that. So I don't know how people do that, but I think because they accidentally hit the Q key and are in quick mask mode. So I'm going to copy these to a new layer. And I just want you to notice that the edges are really clean, right? I'm missing a little bit here, but I can put a layer mask on and clean that up, right? If I wanted to. Or if I just created a mask, select and mask. Oops. Output to a layer mask. right? My document's still there, and I can go in and just kind of touch this up with the brush, like so. So I want to hide, right? So I'm going to use black. Ooh. And in mask mode, you could then just kind of like refine this a little bit, right? Get in there really tiny. If this was for your final project, right? And clean that up. So it looks even better. So this is kind of combining two techniques here. And if you wanted to reveal, like if I missed some little parts, then you could do the same thing because you have the whole original document available to you. Right. So you could reveal some parts. So just go ahead and practice with this one.